So for today's training, I want to focus on investing in your business and how to make some of those decisions. For better or worse, I've gone through this here over the last 5 years, a lot of inexperienced loan officers figuring out what to say yes to, what to say no to. When you don't have any money or enough money, especially really hard to decide to invest in your business. But at the same time, we know from all the great real estate trainers out there and from other different businesses, you have to take some of the revenue that you get from your business and invest back into your business. Now, at Princeton, depending on who your branch manager is, what your setup is, compensation, you may get some of that supplemented by the company. But keep in mind, you should think of that money as yours and plan to be investing it and using it as if it was yours. And I'm going to talk about a lot of the reasons why I think the psychology behind how we think about our money and our investing back in our business is hugely important to driving the right behaviors and the right decision making for loan officers. So we're going to cover this in a really macro way, right? I'll be honest with you, I could spend 45 minutes doing a training on just whether or not you should be paying for coffee and how often. I'm not going to dive into it on that granular level. I'm just going to say really high level, hey, investing in your business is important, how you should be thinking about it, and how you can avoid making bad decisions or thinking about how you invest in your business. So let's start here. We're going to make this participatory. And if you volunteer and guess, even if you're wrong, I will like you better. And how much I like you is really the most important thing to you, I'm sure. So thanks for laughing, Jamie and Dave. I appreciate it. What's the proper amount from a percentage standpoint that loan officers should be investing back into their business?
25%.
25%. That's a big number.
20.
I like that.
Yeah, 20 to
10%.
30% if they want to grow, 10% if they just want to stay level.
Cool. How many of you guys are investing right now 25% of your income into your business? Couple, right? And by the way, that's a scary number. How many of you guys honestly aren't investing even 10% of your income into your business? Right? Raise your hand if you're less than 10%. So everybody here is between 10% and 25%? Okay, give me some examples of the ways that you think financially that you in a calculate. For how many of you guys honestly track how much you're spending on your business each month? Okay, couple. First things first, you should track it. You should have a separate credit card that you use specifically and only for business expenses to make it super easy for yourself. Find one that if you know you're doing a lot of dining out and that's part of your investing. Like there's a saver card through Capital One, 4% cash back on dining and entertainment. Make that your business card, apply for it, use it and get that going, right? You can have a rewards card, different things, miles, but I would have a separate card just for business expenses so that you can figure out and how much you're investing into your business. And also you need to be doing that so you can track what's working and what's not. So we're going to talk two things. Sometimes you're investing in brand or awareness, and sometimes you're investing in leads and marketing, but you should always be trying to measure the results. So I'm going to ask again, everybody has to raise their hand. I'm going to give you three groups. People are investing less than 10% of their current income into their business, 10 to 20% or more than 20% of your income. Everybody has to raise their hand in one group. How many of you guys are doing more than 10% of your business? More between 10 and 20. Between 10 and 20. How many of you guys more than 20? How many of you guys less than 10? All right. So I think 10%'s got to be kind of the minimum. And now again, you may have a relationship with your branch manager where some of that is supplemented. You can count that in your money, whatever that is. But you need to be thinking about that as your money to be calculated with how you spend it. How many? So if you're not tracking it, how do you know if it's working or not? Okay, let me ask you another way. How many of you guys know how many loans you got last year that were directly through investments you made in your business? Financial investments. Cool. So this is if you're running a business, right? I ran a lead call center and owned a lead call center mortgage company for a long time. My lead acquisition cost, my marketing budget, divided by how many loans we closed and the revenue we made on those loans was the single most important calculation in my business, right? How much are we spending on leads? If I spend X amount on leads, how many loans will I get? How much revenue do I need to get from those loans in order for it to make sense for me to spend that much money on those leads? By the way, are those the right lead? We had 10 different lead vendors we bought from. and they all different costs and different qualities. So I had to track what those leads converted at, what we paid for them, and going through those different things. And so that became one of the most important things I had to do as a business owner. For you guys as individual business owners, knowing how you're spending your money and if it's working or not are critical to you growing in your career. Now, can you as a loan officer have a successful career if you don't spend any money investing in your business? Probably, but you're going to invest a whole lot of time instead of money. And sometimes it makes sense to put out a little bit of money to save yourself some time or to build some consistency in the relationship. But when we're talking about value, there are 3 components of value. Anybody here who's been here a while should know them. What are my 3 components of value? If I don't want to know something's a good value, how do I know? There's three macro components of value. We make this decision 100 times a day as human beings. What am I evaluating?
Time and money.
And what's the third one? Time and money and what?
Can't think of the third thing.
Return on investment.
Time, money.
Return on investment.
Results.
We're talking about
Happiness.
value now, right? Great. So cool. Let's talk about value. You guys paid $300 for Mike Miriam's coaching. Okay. You know you have to invest a lot of time, right? How much time is that you're putting into that course? Hours a week, right? Cool. So how will we know if that was a good value? So about the results of it, but really also what is if you want to go to a Taylor Swift concert tickets went for $2,000, right? 3 hours of the concert, $2,000. How do I know if that was a good value? How do I know if it was a good value?
How you feel.
Yeah, the experience.
Happiness.
Experience, guys. Time, money, and experience, right? So when we make decisions as human beings, we're talking about time. So experience, for someone doing a loan with you, right? It's how long is it going to take me, right? How much is it going to cost me compared to other lenders potentially? And what is my overall experience of working with this person going to be, right? We trade money for experience all the time. How many of you guys drive the cheapest car you can? Like you're like, I just need the cheapest one. Kyle says him. Cool. For the rest of us, we're making a value thing, right? It's money and the experience of driving the car, right? We're making that value decision. So when we talk about our value for marketing dollars now we spend, we need to be thinking about these things the same way, which is, hey, listen, I'm going to try to save myself money or make the experience for myself in my business better and more enjoyable through the allocation of my marketing budget. I don't care whether you do 10 or 20%. I think if you're not doing 10%, and you can include anything that you're getting from your branch manager or whatever in terms of how that's set up for you. 10% should be like a minimum floor. Here's why. For you, I bet you a lot of people, if I had to guess and say at least half the people on this call, no matter what they tell me, are spending less than 10% of their money on their business right now. I just guarantee it. Okay. By forcing yourself to spend 10%, by having a separate credit card for your business expenses, and even just if you want to allocate the funds as they come into your account to a separate account to do that, what happens to your thought process if you're like, hey, I have to go spend this 10% on growing my business? What happens to you?
You're invested.
How does it change your mindset? Am I doing a bad job of leading, or are you guys all still half asleep?
You're going to make sure you get good value for your money that you spend.
Well, you're really, it's going to open your mind up, right? Immediately, you're going to start looking for, okay, I got this 10% to spend. What's the best way to spend it? So if you're not thinking that way, you don't have a budget, right? All of a sudden now, especially if you're strapped for money and you're like, or you don't have the amount, you're not feeling great about your financial situation right now. Again, if you're a loan officer in 2023, that's a lot of you, right? Then suddenly you're looking for ways not to spend money all the time. So what does that do? That shuts off your opportunity to look for the opportunities that you could see to invest your money where you would get really good returns. You don't even see the opportunities. You're just like, listen, I don't have enough money right now. I can't do it. La 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 la. That is the mindset. If we don't put that 10% aside, so you start missing the opportunity where what we focus on expands. But if it's like, wow, I'm gonna make myself spend 10% of my money, and I hate it. I want to keep it, but I gotta spend that 10% to reach my goals because it's the most important thing in investing. I better get my money's worth out of these dollars. I need a return on my investment. Now you're opening your eyes and looking for opportunities where you can know, where you're getting safe returns, where you know the money you spend is probably going to get to results. And suddenly you start getting really crafty with how you're planning your events. Right? By the way, maybe if you don't the 10% aside, you throw an event, you're doing it the cheapest way possible and it feels that way. But if you know you got to spend your 10% anyway, maybe making this event a little bit better and a little bit nicer, having a little bit better food, whatever it is, attracts a better realtor, gets a better result, allows you to test things in a different way and measure what's working. And so setting a budget up front and saying, this is the amount I have to spend, no more, no less. Because I recommend you do it this way. Set a budget, 10%, 15%, 20%, $1,000 a month, whatever it is. Set a number that you're like, this is the number I'm going to spend. Don't go higher, don't go lower. Right? By doing that, it forces you to start thinking about the opportunity in front of you. It could be basis points, right? So you start thinking about how you can best deploy that money, and that will immediately lead to better outcomes, right? Because now you're living on a budget. It's forcing different thought process and different decision making, and you know it. Anybody here disagree with this line of thinking or have a different way that they do it that works for them? Because my guess is I see some faces on here. If I know you well enough, you're like, as soon as you have an idea, I'm doing it. I don't care what it costs. Some of you are that person. And by the way, I prefer that to the people who are like, I'm not spending my money. I don't have any money. Right? I think that leads to better results anyway. But I also know from personal experience in my own house sometimes that when you say you're going to do the thing and worry about the cost later, sometimes it costs twice as much as you expect. Right? And so so balling with a budget on this stuff is really important, right? So how many of you guys are already operating this way? You have a set budget in your head, whether it's basis points, a percentage of income, or dollar amount that you spend every single month or every single quarter on your marketing and stuff that you're doing. So also, here's the thing, by not doing that, you're forcing a bunch of micro decisions for yourself that become stressful. Right? So if I set that money aside and I know I'm going to do it and I have a coffee meeting, it doesn't go anywhere, it's no big deal. That was part of my plan. If it goes nowhere, I'm like, damn, I just wasted that $40.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what if you have a base, but like sometimes a lot of my decision on spending depends on production as well.
Yeah,
So,
I think it should depend on production or income, one or the other.
All right. So I didn't know what you felt about that because I feel like you would probably be like, no, keep steady, do your X amount per month, and then don't go crazy. But I have a feeling like I like to spend different things to help my business when, the money's coming in and not spend it.
You're running a business. At Princeton Mortgage, if I was just like, yeah, we're going to keep spending the money the way we're spending the money last year when things were great, we'd go out of business, right? And so you will go out of business, or be strapped for cash and make bad decisions if you don't adjust to the reality of the market. And so again, how you budget yourself, whether maybe there's a fixed dollar amount that in your head you need to run your plan, you're comfortable with it, fine. But basis points or percentage of gross income, I think, are the best ways to look at it in terms of investing back into your business and forcing those good decisions. What other questions do you guys have about this? Because I think this is really important to changing the way you look at investing in your business. Because if you don't have a budget that you're committed to spending, you will either overspend or underspend and probably will not measure success. And so an underspending on your business, I think, is really dangerous because it makes every decision painful. Yeah, I know I should throw that event, but it's $300 and I don't really have it right now. It's like, no, I have $700 in my marketing budget. I got to spend it. This event's going to help me do my business. That decision's already made. That money's already gone. And you got to think about it that way so that you actually do the things. And that money is set aside for growing your business, because otherwise you'll spend it on Uber Eats. You got to get it out of the account first. I don't know how that company doesn't make money. I think they got to be profitable just on what I spend. I have no idea. That's like a gold mine, Uber Eats. All right. What are other things you guys spend money on right now? Let's talk about it. I want to walk through the decision-making process. Give it to me. Please volunteer. Please make my life easier. What do we spend money on?
I do I do it just because it was on my scorecard, but I do like the small happies.
Tell me what's a small happy.
Yeah, like I send inappropriate pins to my realtors that curse, and they love them.
How does Krista feel about that?
She thinks it's funny.
I just give Chris Chris doesn't.
And they're
curse, at
like
least not in front
$7,
of
but
me.
they show up in their mailbox and they love it.
Cool.
And then they text me pictures of the pins all the time.
Are you sending those to realtors you currently work with, have worked with, or sometimes are you doing it for realtors you've never worked with?
I don't do especially inappropriate pins. I only do those for people I work with that I know curse.
So
I would like to go on
vendor
the record
appreciation
saying I do
gifts.
not support this.
Yes, she does.
Vendor appreciation gifts, right? So is there a specific result you're trying to get out of that, or are you that's kind of more like keeping my brand with my current base? It's like a cost of doing business, right?
Yeah, cost of doing business. And then we also send out ninja selling to realtors as well. So I try to do like 4 or 5 of those a month.
Okay. So do you have a budget you're starting with, or do you just whimsically spend money?
I whimsically spend money, but it's usually around the same amount every month. So like, and I track it on, I have a separate credit card for my business and I track it on an expense report. And I have started spending less because I was spending with very whimsically.
Very whimsically, right? When the money's coming in, we spend very whimsically, which is another reason, by the way, I think it makes sense to put some real parameters around it for yourself. Again, it clarifies decision making, right? As a business owner, which each of you guys are for your own business, your job is to make quality decisions. The first way we do that is we talk about habits all the time, building habits so we don't have to make decisions, right? And then what we want to do is we want to create frameworks for ourselves to help ourselves make better decisions. If you guys have been doing this long enough, everybody in here has spent a bunch of money on a thing and gone, fuck, that didn't do anything for me. That was stupid. I wish I didn't do that. That's fine. We want to learn from it, but we want to limit those mistakes, right? We want to make good decisions based on that as we go forward. What are some other things that we spend money on?
Baked by Melissa cupcakes.
So you do cupcakes?
Yeah, the Baked by Melissa cupcakes, they go out to the top 25 agents, referral partners. They get them on their birthday. I do the magazine every 2 months. That goes to all past clients and some realtors. Those are consistent. I do also do the ninja selling and go giver books. When we start with a new agent, they get those sent out right away.
So Lisa, I noticed you probably more than anyone else here does work with some outside vendors for that predictable marketing stuff where it's like it happens, it's on autopilot. I'm not thinking about it, and I'm not making a decision every day.
Right.
How do you decide if you should keep doing those things or if you should stop doing those things?
So with the birthday cupcakes, everybody loves them. And people post on social media and go, oh my God, well, look what I got. So to me, they're spendy, they're $65. But again, what's the experience? The other lenders didn't do that. The other people they work with didn't do that. So to me, it's $65 well spent. The magazine,
And that's 25 agents that you do that for each year?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Keep going.
my budget on a monthly basis is $1,500 to $2,000 a month is what I spend, what I invest. Now, sometimes that's going to be like the magazines. Those are tried and true. They're $4 a client. $4 a client, they get a glossy magazine. They stay on their coffee table. They stay around. They get them every 2 months. So even if they're turned off to email and everything else, they're still going to see the magazine every 2 months. They like it. They enjoy it. They call me and say, hey, thanks for the magazine. Got it again. Love it. You know, kind of thing. So to me, that's a good bang for the buck. Does it translate to a loan today? No, but almost nothing translates to a loan today.
So let me ask you a question. What's it worth to you that those things are kind of set it and forget it and you don't need to think about it all the time?
Priceless. So every time we close a new loan, it's not necessarily set it and forget it because Callan goes in and adds them to the magazine list. But other than that, it's set it and forget it. Callan puts an order in for Baked by Melissa twice a year. So she does in December, she does January through May birthdays. And then in April, she does May through June birthdays. So 2 times a year for her to go into Baked by Melissa and add those people in. And that's kind of ever changing because if I start working with a new realtor that I really want to develop a deeper relationship with, then I'm gonna obviously put them on my 25 list and get them right in the cupcake situation, as well as the magazine list.
Yeah, but the fact that you have 25 is a budgeting decision, right? You're not just adding realtors willy-nilly,
no.
right? And so
No, we
I
did
like
that. We did that. We did that a year and a half ago, and that was a freaking train wreck. I was bleeding money and going, I don't even know this person from Adam. And then come to find out, when I did know them, I didn't want to work with them. And then I sent them cupcakes.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I love those, and those are some good ideas. And I know there's other things that you participated in before too. And so, yeah, here's actually what I think is really important. We start making those decisions up front. And I want to talk about like MSAs and things too. You should know going in what success looks like for you and what would make you keep doing it or stop doing it. Okay. And so knowing what you're trying to get out of it and measuring up front, if you can't figure that out, you shouldn't spend the money most of the time. Now, sometimes it's sending pens. The answer is I'm not trying to get anything out of it. That's okay. Right. Like if you're like deliberately like, this is not for that. Right. Cupcakes and magazines are more like, hey, if maybe my magazine's cool. If I'm getting a phone call from 5% of the people or 10% of the people I send the magazine to each year, once a year, because the magazine, or whatever, or I know that I'm getting X amount of those clients coming back to me. So if I say, hey, in a given year, let's say 20% of my past clients will probably get a mortgage this year. I'm getting 8% of my clients to come back to me. That's the return I'm looking for. Great. We can measure what success looks like there. We figure those things out. But we should know what we're trying to get at. We should be measuring what success looks like. Yes, I think a magazine going out 6 times a year is a great way to stay in front of somebody and remind them, you know, a loan officer, right? And it's pretty cheap, right? We're talking about $24 a year for each person on that list to get 6 magazines. That feels like a pretty good investment to me. If we know that those people are probably going to do an average of 8 mortgages over the course of your career, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? You start thinking of it that way, right? So you spend $1,000 over 40 years sending this person magazines, you know, and you get 8 loans from them and their friends. That's a really good investment, right? So what are some of the things we spend money on? I want to walk through some more individual examples.
I also started doing a co-lead thing with an agent.
Tell me about it.
So I'm normally not a lead kind of girl because it just doesn't fit who I am or my business or how I get compensated. But I really like her and her team. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll do it for 90 days because I'll do almost anything for 90 days, but we're going to evaluate it and see where are we at. I don't want to keep throwing money at the wall if we're not getting a return. She agreed that that was absolutely fair. So it wasn't going to make it ugly if we had to break up. And it's not, it is what it is, which I'm getting loans from her team, which is what I wanted. I didn't necessarily want the leads. I wanted the loans from her team. So it's working for what it's meant to be doing. And that's $633 a month.
Perfect. So this is a great scenario. And by the way, Lisa, I know that you and I've actually, I think one-on-one talked about this before in the past, and also probably had a training on this at one point in the past as well. So a couple things with agents when you do these deals, right? And Lisa mentioned a few of them that are super important, so I just want to highlight them. 1, both sides need to have clear expectations about what success looks like and what will either cause you to keep investing or stop investing up front. Without that, you will eventually lose this relationship because this lead source, this thing will not go on forever. Anybody here have co-leads and buying with a realtor the same thing for 5 years? Not a thing. The market moves too fast, opportunities move too fast, realtors' lives change, people get sick. There's just too many things that are happening over 5 years. So your relationship will break because you will end up having to go to this person and they're probably at a time where they're most vulnerable and say to them, I need to stop doing this, and they will not like you for it, right? And so you need to have very clear agreements up front about what success looks like. So for me, if I'm spending $500 per closed loan, and in Lisa's case, I don't care if it's coming from the lead, which person on the team, whatever else it is, if my net gain is I'm spending $500 on leads and getting a loan, huge win. $1,000, it's tight. Over 1,000, I'm out. Under 500, I'm going to invest every dollar I have in whatever this thing is. That's like usually how I think about it. Okay. Now it depends on your average loan size, right? If your average loan size is 500,000, maybe your number is higher. If your average loan size is 150,000, your number is going to be lower. I'm doing this off of a $250,000 to $300,000 average loan size, right? So I think about it normally. If I'm doing 20% of my, if I'm making 100 basis points, 20% of my commission per deal, no brainer. Better than that's great. If I'm doing, so also if I'm paying 30%, I'm not doing it. Okay. I don't think it's the right combination. You can invest that money better somewhere else. So I tell the realtor that up front, hey, we're going to do this for 90 days. Like Lisa said, I'm happy to try it. I need at least 3 loans from your team over those 90 days. Again, I don't care if they come from the leads or not, right? I get leads are weird. They take a long time, whatever. I don't care where it comes from. But if I get 3 loans from your team, no problem. We'll keep doing this. If I get 2 loans, I'll give it 1 more month, but then we got to get caught up. If it's 1 loan or less, I'm out. And if it's more than 3 loans, let's see how we can get some more leads, right? And we'll have that conversation. Now all of a sudden you have a partner. 2 things usually happen here. 50% of realtors will just not ask you about this again and will not take your money. They are not confident the thing they're about to give you money on is going to work. And by the way, you just saved yourself a bunch of money. They don't want to work with somebody. They want the dumb loan officer that's going to keep giving them money and never follow up. And they're very disappointed by your intellect and your clear expectations in this conversation. It's not what they were looking for. Okay. And so you want to, again, that's not a loss, guys. That's a win. Sometimes it can feel like a loss, but it is a win. If you set clear expectations with someone and they are frightened by that, then that means they're not a partner, right? A partner wants both of you to succeed, right? It's a partnership, right? And so we have to know what clear expectations are going into it. Most partnerships in business fail because people do people things. They do human stuff. And so the only way you can avoid us humaning ourselves out of partnerships is to set really clear expectations up front, whether this is your marriage, your business, or your MSA that you're doing. Okay. Here's the other thing, that MSA should fit into whatever your budget is for your business. And so Elise said, I'll try anything for 90 days. I think that's the right attitude. You'll try anything for 90 days. And that might mean stopping doing something else, because what we don't want to start doing is investing more than we can afford to invest in our business. Right. Now, again, everyone's different. If you made $1 million this year and you're willing to spend $1,800 to try something out, no problem. But you don't want to become resentful of your experimental cost. You have to go into this knowing there's a chance you will get nothing out of it. Right. And so it has to be part of your budget for the experimental cost if you're going to go ahead and do that. Otherwise, you will become resentful of that relationship. And even if you don't ever say anything to that realtor, they will feel it from you. They will feel it because you will human it. Okay. So set clear expectations. What are some other things in our business that we spend money on? I know there's stuff I'm looking at faces. I know what you guys spend money on. What do we spend money on?
I spend money on HomeBot and list reports.
Cool. What do you think? How long have you been doing it?
I guess HomeBot for about a year, and that's probably the most effective thing I've ever spent money on. For whatever reason, clients love it. And people call me and they email me and say, hey, thanks for setting that up for me. And they will email me questions like, HomeBot has some set questions that people can email, like, I'd like a CMA on this property. And so then I contact the agent. Competitive market analysis. Cool. Yeah, so it's it's the realtor thing. So then I contact the realtor and say, hey, our past client is looking for a CMA on his property. And then what happens? Nothing. The realtors never reply. It boggles my mind. I'm handing them the client and they don't even reply to me. So all I can say is I hope they're just I hope they're slacking on the actual reply to me and they actually contact the client. But after a while, if I don't hear from them and the client doesn't hear from them, then.
So I would do a text, a text to both of them, right?
I do.
Text, if the realtor doesn't respond in 24 hours, I'm recommending a different realtor to that person. Mm-hmm. I'm out. Or I'll give that realtor one chance, but I let people know the deal up front, right? You got to service the clients. I'll use that as a way to get a different realtor in the door. So I'm not not afraid to burn bridges for people who aren't responsive. I don't want those people to be my partners anyway. So I feel your pain on that. Anybody else use HomeBot? I know Diana, you use that, right? Big fan. Brandon. So we see some people, high producing loan officers, people done this a while using HomeBot. I think it's a cool one. I think there's a pretty obvious return on investment, by the way, both in realtor relationships and in borrower relationships and something like that. However, you know, it's got to fit your budget. You got to measure it. What was the other one you said? You use list reports. I love list reports. What do you think of list reports?
I don't love list reports as much as I love HomeBot. I mean, it probably the most beneficial piece of that is just the notifications, like, hey, so-and-so has a new listing, or this person has just sold. I just left Gold Star, and at Gold Star we upgraded to I forget what they called it at List Reports, but it's their value added package where they give you more information on what your agents are doing. So so you get to know the agents that you think you're working with. You get to see when they're closing deals with somebody else and who they are. So that's painful, but but valuable.
I also like it though, because when you see another loan officer in your area that moves companies, and you can go into MMI and see this too. I always want to go through that loan officer and see who are the realtors that they work with the most, or the people that might be the most annoyed this person just changed companies, and I'll make sure I target those realtors. And so when you see other loan officers changing companies, I always like to attack their favorite realtors at that moment, because you never know when someone might drop the ball, something gets lost in communication with a file when they leave, those types of things. I always want to try to take advantage of that. That may seem particularly ruthless, but my job is to win market share. So cool. Guys, by the way, there's a lot of good ideas here. So depending on where you are in your business with your budget, you can't do all of this stuff. That's why it's so important to have a budget and ruthlessly prioritize, and you'll try stuff. So if you go to list reports and you're like, this is really cool, but it's $300 for the upgraded package or whatever it is. And so I need to allocate that money towards coffee meetings right now because it's not delivering the value that I expected. But if you don't have a budget, you let that thing just recur on your credit card all the time, and it's probably on your regular credit card with all your other expenses and your Netflix account. And then all of a sudden you're paying for it for a year and you haven't even logged in 6 months. By the way, you all know who you are. You're me. I do those things if I'm not paying attention, right? And so I share this with you guys so this is a vitally critical important to make sure that you are spending some money investing in your business. Again, I think a minimum of 10% of your gross income should be going into your business to do this, and also be really paying attention to how you're allocating those dollars and what you expect success to look like. Anybody here spending money on something right now and they're not sure if it's a good idea and they want to walk through if they're making a good decision on it? Anybody willing to share? I'm shameless, so it's, I don't mind sharing.
Well, I've already shared with you before my coaching, that I'm trying to decide if I'm going to continue forward with
the core, right?
Yeah.
So how do you measure success from that?
I guess it's maybe a little bit subjective, but I think, just trying to measure what tactics are they giving me, am I following through on my part of, whatever they're teaching me, and then when I track the results, do I feel like it's actually paying off, for the investment?
I think coach, I'm glad you brought up coaching. I was going to bring that up. And by the way, I'm somebody, I go to therapy every week. That's a very hard thing to track in terms of your investment value. So that's why I think experience, we factor in time and money, is also a very important part of the equation. Brandon, what I would say to you is, if you find you are energized for your coaching call, you are energized coming out of your coaching call, and it makes you excited to do anything new in your business. If you are doing any new, whether those new activities are working or not, I think is almost irrelevant or an extra part of the equation. If you walk away and say, man, I'm excited for my coaching call today, I'm excited about building my business coming out of my coaching call, that probably has real value in propelling you forward from the monotony of just doing the same things all the time, but actually feeling like you're working and growing your business and becoming a better version of yourself. I think those things are really important investments, right? It's rare to measure if your therapy is working or if your coaching is working, those sort of a thing, right, over a short period of time. But I fundamentally believe that time spent working on myself or alone with those thoughts without any noise and really focusing, okay, what's going on with me? What am I feeling? What's really holding me back? What's in my way? and having scheduled time for that is worth it for me. Right. And so that's how I think about that investment of time. And so I do think if you're like, hey, if I don't get more loans, especially in this environment, my coaching isn't working, it's probably a limited outlook. Right. But I understand it, by the way, because you have to ruthlessly prioritize and maybe you don't have the right coach. But what I would say is, like, if you're still really excited for coaching every week and you're excited coming out of coaching, you probably have the right coach. Right. If coaching feels something you have to do and you're constantly stressed about it because you didn't actually do the stuff you agreed you were going to do last week and you're not getting out of it, then I also think coaching has seasons. I think therapy has seasons. Which I mean by that is, like, I think if I were doing coaching, I think you do it for 12 weeks a year, right? Like, you know what I mean? That kind of a thing. Or you do it for, or 12 weeks on, 24 weeks off, 12 weeks on, where it's like, if you're constantly doing that, and unless you're building on a specific skill set or strength of things, I think it gets lost in the noise. I think taking a break from it and then coming back with some enthusiasm with a specific goal in mind for a 12-week period, I think probably makes the most sense. But I think, I think it's also a deeply personal decision. I think if it makes you feel good, spending the time to do it every week is probably worth it just for that. Sometimes part of the investment can be the joy if you're enjoying it.
I don't know. It's a lot of money just to feel good.
We all spend a lot of money just to feel good.
I know.
Well, and is it authentic too? I mean, like Mark said, I do coaching too, but just like you said, it's seasonal. So sometimes you got to take a break because otherwise you're just talking about the same thing and it's boring. So, I mean, when you're going to coaching, are you stoked? Are you excited? I've got my coaching call this week, or are you like, oh, damn, I got to listen to this guy again. And he's this way and I'm this way. And, kind of like that sort of thing too, right?
Yeah, it should feel good, right? I think that's the thing. I think you should come out of it energized and feel like you're going in the right direction. All right, cool, guys. Well, we got a couple minutes left. Any last questions about what we're spending money on, what we should be spending money on, or how we're thinking about it?
I have something to add about the coaching too. I got lucky and ran into a coach that touches all three things in my life. They don't just talk about business. They'll work on my spiritual, my mental. It's kind of therapy and business all in one guy. And, if I'm okay in my business world with what I feel like I'm doing, I may just call him and just talk about how I'm feeling and get him to help me re-energize with maybe somewhere I'm struggling personally. And I love my coach. He's awesome dude. So maybe if you're not getting what you need out of your coach, maybe it's just time to change coaches and experiment.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. So I'm going to wrap up with this thought. At a minimum, you guys should be setting a budget for yourself, having all of those expenses going to one place so it's easy for you to track, and looking at that each month for a certain period of time in your calendar. Hey, evaluate my expenses and deciding, hey, is this still working for me? Should I continue doing it? At a minimum, that's the do. Set a budget, find a way to track it, put a half hour in your calendar once a month to see, are these things working for me or not, and building those things forward. And if you need help figuring out how you should be measuring it, what success looks like, should you be doing this stuff, reach out to me, reach out to Dave. We'll have those conversations with you. But I think this is a critical piece of the business. And again, especially in an environment where money feels tight, which I think it probably does for a lot of us right now. It's where you have to be, it's easy to hide, right? Like, I don't want to look at my credit card statements. I don't want to look at my bills. I don't want to look at any of this stuff. I can't deal with it. The stress. Diana's eating her nails over there. She's freaking out about it as we go. You got to look in the mirror with this stuff, man. It's hard. You got to find a way to look in the mirror with it all and go with it, right? And so, and if your personal finances are standing in the way of you having these conversations with yourself, then I have some other tips to get those things in line as well. Great website called Personal Capital. I highly recommend it, or one of the ones like it where you can plug your whole life into it, every credit card, everything, see where all the money is going. And if that's scary for you, it's all the more reason why you should do it. I know there's certain days I don't feel like logging in, but I have a routine. So those are my recommendations for that, guys. I hope you enjoyed the training today. Please rate it. Dave, what's on the docket for tomorrow?
Geldy is going to be going over 184 loans and training everybody on how that all works, the ins and the outs. So I'm interested for that because I know nothing about it. So
So
So what
Section
is it?
184 is a government program specifically for Native Americans and Native American land. I think it's actually, depending on where you are, might be actually a bigger opportunity than you've ever thought of before. I thought it was like 5 people who qualified for these loans. There's significantly more than that. It's also a great way into certain communities in certain areas. So definitely worth checking out tomorrow if you got some time. I'll see you guys there. I'm interested to learn more about them as well. But when I met Geldy, it was one of the things that we kind of told her we were going to dive into here at Princeton. We got those up and running, and she's definitely out there doing them. So it's a huge focus of her business. Appreciate it, guys. Happy selling. Let's finish this week super strong. We're off to a great start. I'll see you guys in training tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.